The morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows of St. Catherine's Convent, casting long golden rectangles across the worn wooden floor of the piano room. Sister Maria Cecilia's wrinkled fingers moved across the keys with the grace of someone who had spent more years playing than not. At 83, her hands were not as quick as they once were, but they carried the wisdom of 7 decades of devotion to music. The melody she played was her own creation, something that had come to her during prayer the previous night. Like always, she had risen before dawn, slipped her feet into her old slippers, and made her way to the piano room while the rest of the convent slept. These quiet morning hours belonged to her and the piano, and to God, as she would always say with a gentle smile. "I don't play for myself," she often told the younger nuns. "The music comes through me, not from me." The convent in Verona had been Sister Maria's home since she was 18. Back then her name had been Lucia Rossi, and she had dreamed of becoming a concert pianist. Life had other plans. After losing her parents in a terrible accident, she found peace within these walls and a different purpose for her music. The last notes of her morning composition hung in the air when Sister Maria heard footsteps approaching. She turned to see Sister Gabriella, one of the youngest nuns, standing in the doorway with an anxious expression. "Mother Superior wants to see everyone in the main hall after breakfast," Sister Gabriella said. "The new Mother Superior, I mean. She arrived last night," Sister Maria nodded. The previous Mother Superior, her dear friend Sister Agnese, had passed away 2 months ago. The arrival of her replacement had been expected, though Sister Maria had not anticipated the small knot of worry that formed in her stomach at the news. "Thank you, my dear," she said, closing the piano gently. "I'll be there." The main hall buzzed with whispered conversations when Sister Maria entered. She took her usual place in the back row, her small frame nearly hidden behind the taller younger nuns. At exactly 9 o'clock, the side door opened, and Mother Superior Francesca entered. She was younger than Sister Maria had expected, perhaps in her early 50s, with sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Her steps were brisk, her posture perfect. When she spoke, her voice filled the room without effort. "Good morning, sisters. I am Mother Francesca from the Milan Diocese, and I'm honored to serve as your new Mother Superior." She paused, surveying the room. "I've spent the last month reviewing reports about St. Catherine's. This convent has a proud history, but I must be honest, we face challenges in the modern world. Our enrollment is down, our finances are concerning. Our methods are," she hesitated, "traditional when the church is calling for renewal and relevance, sister." Maria watched as Mother Francesca unfolded a large diagram and pinned it to the board behind her. "This is my 5-year modernization plan for St. Catherine's. Phase 1 begins immediately." The diagram showed the convent layout, with several areas marked in red. Sister Maria squinted, leaning forward slightly. The piano room was circled in bright red. "Our first priority is to establish a digital learning center," Mother Francesca continued. "Young women joining religious life today expect modern facilities. The old music room will be converted. It has the right dimensions and electrical access." A murmur ran through the gathered nuns. Sister Maria felt her heart beat faster, but she remained silent. Change was part of life, even in a convent. Surely there would still be a place for the piano. After the meeting, Sister Maria approached Mother Francesca, who was speaking with Sister Teresa, the convent's accountant. "Excuse me, Mother," Sister Maria said when there was a pause in their conversation. "I was wondering about the piano. Where will it be moved to?" Mother Francesca turned, looking down at the elderly nun as if noticing her for the first time. "You must be Sister Maria Cecilia," she said. "Sister Teresa was just mentioning you. You're the one who plays every morning?" "Yes, Mother. For over 60 years now." Mother Francesca's expression softened slightly. "I understand traditions are important, sister, but we must adapt to survive. The piano will be stored properly, I assure you." "Stored?" Sister Maria asked, her voice barely audible. "But when will it be available for playing?" Mother Francesca exchanged a glance with Sister Teresa before answering. "The digital center will have headphones and keyboards for those who wish to practice music. Much more practical, wouldn't you agree? No disturbances to others." Sister Maria felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. "The piano is not just an instrument, Mother. It's a voice, a prayer. I'm sure your prayers will be heard just as clearly without it, Mother Francesca replied, her tone final. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have budgets to discuss. Sister Maria walked slowly back to her small room, each step heavier than the last. She sat on the edge of her narrow bed, looking at the framed photograph on her nightstand, herself as a young woman, sitting at a grand piano, her father standing proudly beside her. That was the day she had been accepted to the conservatory, just weeks before the accident that changed everything. The next morning, Sister Maria woke before dawn as usual. For a moment lying in the dark, she could almost believe nothing had changed. Then reality settled over her like a heavy blanket. Still, she rose, put on her slippers, and made her way to the piano room. The corridor was dark, but she knew every step by heart. When she reached the piano room and pushed open the door, she found it empty. The piano was gone. In its place were stacked boxes labeled computer equipment and digital supplies. Sister Maria stood in the doorway, her hand still on the knob, unable to move forward or back. The space felt wrong, too empty and too full at the same time. The morning light that would soon stream through the windows would find no polished wood to caress, no ivory keys to illuminate. Sister Maria, a voice called softly from behind her. She turned to find Sister Gabriella, her young face concerned in the dim light. They moved it yesterday evening, Sister Gabriella explained gently. To the storage room near the old library. Sister Maria nodded, unable to speak. I could show you, Sister Gabriella offered, taking the elderly nun's arm. There's still an hour before morning prayers. The storage room was dusty and cramped. Boxes of old hymnals and donated books lined the walls. In the center, partially covered with a cloth, stood the piano. It looked out of place, like a proud old horse locked in a too small stable. It's still in tune, Sister Gabriella said hopefully. Brother Paolo checked it after they moved it. Sister Maria approached the instrument slowly, removing the cloth with care. She ran her fingers lightly over the keys without pressing them, a greeting rather than a performance. Thank you, dear, she said to Sister Gabriella. I think I'd like a moment alone. When the young nun had gone, Sister Maria sat on the piano bench and closed her eyes. She remembered the day the piano had arrived at the convent, a donation from a wealthy patron 50 years ago. It had never been a remarkable instrument by professional standards, but it had been hers, her companion through joys and sorrows, through periods of faith and doubt. Slowly, she placed her fingers on the keys and began to play. The sound was different in this small room, more confined, but the melody was the same one she had played yesterday morning, her newest composition, still forming in her mind and heart. She played softly at first, then with growing confidence. Music had always been her true language, more expressive than words could ever be. Through it, she could speak of loss and hope, of acceptance and quiet rebellion. Sister Maria was so absorbed in her playing that she didn't notice the storage room door opening slightly, or Mother Francesca standing there, watching with an unreadable expression. That afternoon, Sister Maria was called to Mother Francesca's office. The new Mother Superior sat behind her desk, surrounded by neat stacks of papers and a sleek laptop computer. Sister Teresa tells me you've been with us longer than any other sister, Mother Francesca began. Yes, Mother. 65 years this October. Mother Francesca nodded. A lifetime of service deserves respect. But Sister Maria, times change, and we must change with them. Sister Maria remained silent, hands folded in her lap. I understand you were in the storage room this morning. Mother Francesca continued, playing the piano. Yes, Mother. The storage room is not a music room, Sister, and your playing, while undoubtedly meaningful to you, can be distracting to others trying to work or pray. Sister Maria looked up, meeting Mother Francesca's eyes directly for the first time. Music is my prayer, Mother. Mother Francesca sighed. Sister Maria, the convent needs everyone's contribution right now. Sister Teresa mentioned you have experience with gardening. I tended the herb garden for many years, yes. Excellent. Beginning tomorrow, you'll assist Sister Lucia with the vegetable garden. The physical activity will be good for you, and we need to expand our produce to reduce food costs. Sister Maria recognized the conversation for what it was. Not a discussion, but an instruction. As you wish, Mother. As she turned to leave, Mother Francesca added, And Sister? The storage room needs to remain accessible for supplies. The piano should not be played. Your devotion would be better directed to your new duties." The words fell like stones, heavy and cold. Sister Maria nodded once and left the office. That night, after evening prayers, Sister Maria sat by her window looking out at the garden where she would work tomorrow. The moon cast silver light over the neat rows of vegetables and herbs. She could see beauty there, she told herself. She could find purpose in nurturing growing things, as she once had. But her fingers moved restlessly in her lap, playing an invisible keyboard, unable to still themselves after decades of daily communion with music. In the darkness of her small room, Sister Maria whispered a prayer, not for restoration of what was lost, but for guidance in finding a new path forward. Yet even as she prayed, melodies continued to form in her mind, insistent as heartbeats. She would learn to garden again. She would embrace her new duties with grace. But somewhere deep inside, where even Mother Francesca's authority could not reach, Sister Maria knew that silence was not her calling. The music would find a way. 2 weeks passed and Sister Maria settled into her new routine. Each morning she rose with the sun and joined Sister Lucia in the vegetable garden. Her old hands remembered the feel of soil, the gentle way to transplant seedlings, the patient work of weeding between rows of lettuce and tomatoes. The garden was peaceful in its own way, she had to admit. But every day as she worked among the plants, melodies continued to form in her mind. Sometimes she would hum softly, her fingers moving slightly as if playing invisible keys. Sister Lucia noticed but said nothing, only smiling kindly when their eyes met. The piano in the storage room remained untouched. Sister Maria passed by the door sometimes, pausing briefly, her hand hovering over the doorknob before moving on. She had given her word, and a lifetime of obedience was not easily set aside. Spring turned fully to summer, bringing with it unexpected news. The convent would host a distinguished visitor, Professor Alessandro Berti from the Venice Conservatory of Music. He was donating a collection of rare music books to the convent's library, a gesture of thanks for the care his aunt had received there in her final years. "He'll be here tomorrow," Sister Teresa announced at dinner. "Mother Francesca wants everything to be perfect. The library must be spotless and we'll serve lunch in the main hall." Sister Maria listened with mild interest. In her younger days, she might have been excited to meet a professor from the famous conservatory, but now such things seemed distant from her life of simple routines. The next morning, Sister Maria was in the garden earlier than usual. The summer heat would soon make outdoor work difficult, so she wanted to finish weeding the carrot beds before the sun rose too high. She was so absorbed in her task that she didn't notice the car arriving or the visitor being welcomed at the main entrance. Professor Berti was a tall man in his 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes behind round glasses. Mother Francesca herself showed him around the convent, ending with the library where his donation would be housed. "Your aunt spoke so fondly of this place," he said as they walked. "She said it was where she found true peace." Mother Francesca nodded. "St. Catherine's has provided sanctuary for generations of women. Though we are modernizing now to ensure we can continue that mission for generations to come." She gestured proudly toward the new digital learning center, formerly the piano room, where 2 young novices were setting up computer equipment. "Very impressive," Professor Berti said politely. "Technology can be a wonderful tool for education." As they continued their tour, passing near the old library wing, Professor Berti suddenly stopped. His head tilted slightly like a bird listening for a distant call. "Do you hear that?" he asked. Mother Francesca frowned. "Hear what?" "Music, piano music." Now Mother Francesca heard it too, faint but unmistakable. A complex melody drifted through the corridor, coming from somewhere ahead. "That's strange," she said, her frown deepening. "We moved the piano to storage." "No one should be playing it." Professor Berti's face lit up. "Whoever it is has remarkable technique. That passage, it's extraordinarily difficult, yet they're playing it with such emotion." Before Mother Francesca could respond, he was moving down the corridor, following the music like a man in a trance. She hurried after him, concern evident on her face. The sound led them to the storage room. The door was slightly ajar, and through the gap they could see Sister Maria seated at the piano. Her eyes closed, her whole body swaying slightly as she played. Professor Berti stood transfixed. The piece was nothing he recognized, neither classical nor modern in the conventional sense. It had elements of Bach's mathematical precision but was infused with something else, something both ancient and new. The final notes faded into silence. Sister Maria's hands remained on the keys for a moment before she sighed and opened her eyes. It was then that she noticed the two figures in the doorway. She stood quickly, nearly knocking over the piano bench. "Mother Francesca, I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't be." "That was extraordinary," Professor Bertie interrupted, stepping into the room. "Truly extraordinary. Did you compose that yourself?" Sister Maria glanced uncertainly at Mother Francesca before answering. "Yes, it's something that came to me during prayer. You're a composer as well as a pianist?" The professor's voice was filled with wonder. "Where did you study?" "I had lessons as a child, before I entered the convent. But that was a long time ago." Mother Francesca cleared her throat. Sister Maria was just leaving. "She has duties in the garden this morning." "Please, a moment more," Professor Bertie said. He turned back to Sister Maria. "That piece, does it have a name?" Sister Maria hesitated. "I call it the Sparrow's Prayer. I was watching a sparrow outside my window last week and the melody came to me." "Do you have others? Other compositions?" Sister Maria nodded slowly. "Many. I've been composing for most of my life. Nothing important, just prayers, I suppose." "Nothing important?" Professor Bertie repeated, astonished. "Madam Sister, what I just heard was remarkable. Are these compositions written down? Recorded?" "Some are written. In notebooks. I have a system of notation that works for me." Professor Bertie turned to Mother Francesca, his expression earnest. "Mother Superior, do you realize what you have here? This woman is a master composer. Her work deserves to be heard." Mother Francesca looked uncomfortable. "Professor Bertie, Sister Maria is a devoted member of our community. Her talents are appreciated, but we have pressing needs that require everyone's contribution in practical ways." "Music is practical," Professor Bertie insisted. "It feeds the soul, and talent like this, it's rare, precious." An awkward silence fell over the room. Sister Maria stood with her hands folded, eyes downcast, while the professor and Mother Francesca seemed locked in a silent battle of wills. Finally, Professor Bertie spoke again, his voice gentle but determined. "Sister Maria, may I see your compositions?" "With your permission, of course." Before Mother Francesca could object, Sister Maria nodded. "They're in my room. Just simple notebooks. I'd be honored to look at them." Mother Francesca sighed. "Very well. Sister Maria, you may show Professor Bertie your notebooks. But please remember that the garden work must be completed today." "Yes, Mother. Thank you." Sister Maria's room was small and spare, with a narrow bed, a wooden chair, and a small desk. From beneath the bed, she pulled out a worn leather suitcase and opened it. Inside were dozens of notebooks, some yellowed with age, others newer. "These go back 60 years, she explained, handling them with care. "The older ones are not very good. I was still learning." Professor Bertie took one of the middle notebooks and opened it reverently. The pages were filled with neat musical notation, some conventional, some clearly of Sister Maria's own invention. He hummed a few bars softly, his eyebrows rising in appreciation. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the piano in the storage room. Sister Maria nodded, and they returned to the small room. For the next hour, Professor Bertie played through pieces from various notebooks, occasionally asking questions about a particular passage or notation. Sister Maria stood nearby, answering quietly, sometimes humming along or gently correcting his interpretation. "This is astonishing work," he said finally, closing the last notebook. "You've developed your own musical language here. It's complex yet accessible, technically demanding yet emotionally direct." Sister Maria looked embarrassed by the praise. "It's just what I hear in my head. What comes through prayer." "Inspiration comes in many forms," Professor Bertie said, "but the technical skill to express it, that's rare." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "Sister Maria, would you consider sharing your music more widely?" She looked startled. "Sharing it? How?" "There's a charity concert being organized next month in Verona to raise funds for children's music education. I'm on the committee. Would you consider performing?" Sister Maria's eyes widened in alarm. "Perform in public? Oh no, I couldn't possibly. I've never played for anyone except the sisters here." "But your music deserves to be heard," Professor Bertie insisted, "and it would be for a good cause." Mother Francesca, who had been standing silently in the doorway, stepped forward. "That's quite enough, Professor. Sister Maria is 83 years old. She has not left the convent in decades. A public performance is out of the question. Sister Maria looked relieved, though something like regret flickered briefly across her face. Professor Bertie sighed, but nodded respectfully. Of course. I understand. He turned to Sister Maria. Thank you for sharing your gift with me today. It was truly a blessing. As they walked back toward the main hall, Professor Bertie spoke quietly to Mother Francesca. The concert will be held at the community center on the 15th. Should Sister Maria change her mind, there would be a place for her. Mother Francesca's response was firm. That won't be necessary, but thank you for your interest in our community. That evening after dinner, Sister Maria returned to her garden duties, mulching the tomato plants as the sun began to set. Her mind kept returning to the professor's visit, to the way he had played her compositions with such respect and understanding. There you are. Sister Teresa's voice broke into her thoughts. Mother Francesca wants to see you in her office. Sister Maria brushed the soil from her hands and made her way to the administrative wing. Mother Francesca was at her desk looking troubled. Sit down, Sister Maria, she said, gesturing to the chair opposite. I've been thinking about Professor Bertie's visit today. I'm sorry about the piano, Mother. I know you asked me not to play. Mother Francesca held up her hand. That's not why I called you here. She sighed deeply. Sister Teresa showed me the financial reports this afternoon. The roof repairs will cost more than we anticipated. Much more. Sister Maria waited, unsure where this was leading. The charity concert Professor Bertie mentioned. It's for children's music education, but part of the proceeds will go to historic buildings in need of restoration. Mother Francesca tapped her pen against the desk. Including religious buildings. Understanding dawned slowly on Sister Maria's face. You want me to play at the concert? For the convent roof? Mother Francesca nodded reluctantly. I don't like the idea of putting you on display, but we are in genuine need and this seems providential. Sister Maria sat very still, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The thought of playing in public filled her with terror. Yet the convent needed help. Her home for 65 years needed her. I would need to practice, she said finally. On a proper piano, not in the storage room. A hint of a smile touched Mother Francesca's lips. I suppose we could delay the computer installation in the digital center for a few weeks. The piano could be moved back temporarily. Sister Maria nodded slowly. Then I will try, Mother. For St. Catherine's. Thank you, Sister Maria. Mother Francesca's voice was softer than usual. Professor Bertie left his card. I'll call him in the morning. As Sister Maria walked back to her room that night, her heart was racing with a mixture of fear and unexpected excitement. After a lifetime of playing only for herself and for God, she would play for strangers. The thought was terrifying, yet beneath the fear was something else. A small, quiet voice that whispered, At last, someone will hear. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur for Sister Maria. The piano was moved back to its original room, though the computer equipment remained stacked in boxes along one wall, a reminder that this arrangement was temporary. Sister Maria practiced every morning and afternoon, working through the pieces she had selected for the concert. Her fingers, stiff from gardening and age, gradually remembered their old flexibility. Still, she worried. Would her hands betray her when the moment came? Would the music that sounded so clear in her head translate to something others could understand? Professor Bertie visited twice to listen to her practice. The first time, he sat quietly as she played 3 of her compositions. When she finished, he offered gentle suggestions about tempo and dynamics, speaking to her not as an amateur but as a fellow musician. You have a gift for counterpoint, he told her. Bach would have approved. Sister Maria smiled at that. Johann Sebastian Bach had always been her musical hero, not just for his genius but for his devotion. He had signed his manuscripts Soli Deo Gloria, to God alone be the glory. She understood that sentiment in her bones. The second time Professor Bertie visited, he brought a small digital recorder. May I? He asked. Just so you can hear yourself as others will hear you. Sister Maria nodded nervously. She had never heard her playing recorded before. After she finished her program, Professor Bertie played back the recording. Sister Maria listened with her eyes closed, her expression shifting between surprise, disappointment, and occasional pleasure. It's different, she said when it ended. Hearing it from outside myself, what do you think? He asked. She considered carefully. Some parts are not as I imagined. The middle section of The Sparrow's Prayer, it's too rushed. I'm not letting it breathe, she paused. But the ending of Moonlight on Water, that sounds right. Professor Bertie smiled. You have a good ear for your own work. Many composers don't. Word spread quickly through the convent about Sister Maria's upcoming performance. Most of the nuns were supportive, though a few of the older ones shared Sister Maria's concern about public exposure. It's not our way to seek attention, Sister Constance said at dinner one evening. Our gifts are for service, not display. But isn't music a form of service? Sister Gabriella countered. Sister Maria's playing brings joy and peace to listeners. That's a kind of ministry. Sister Maria herself remained torn. Part of her was terrified of playing for strangers after a lifetime of privacy. Another part, a part she barely acknowledged, was curious. What would it be like to share the melodies that had lived only in her head and heart for so long? 3 days before the concert, Sister Maria awoke with pain in her right wrist. She tried to ignore it during morning prayers, but when she sat down to practice, her fingers felt wooden and unresponsive. Arthritis, said Sister Agnes, the convent's nurse, examining the swollen joint. Not surprising at your age, especially with all the garden work and now the intensive playing. Sister Maria looked at her hand as if it had betrayed her. Will it improve by Saturday? Sister Agnes shrugged. Rested as much as possible. Warm compresses might help. But sister, at your age, these things don't simply disappear. That afternoon, Mother Francesca found Sister Maria sitting alone in the chapel. Her hands folded in her lap. Sister Agnes told me about your wrist, Mother Francesca said, sitting beside her on the wooden pew. If you need to cancel the performance, we'll understand. Sister Maria shook her head. The convent needs the roof repairs. We'll find another way. But what if there isn't another way? Sister Maria turned to face the younger woman. All my life I've played for God alone. Perhaps now he wants me to play for others too, even if my hands hurt, even if I'm afraid. Mother Francesca studied her for a long moment. You surprise me, Sister Maria. I thought you were opposed to change. A small smile touched Sister Maria's lips. I'm 83, Mother. I've seen more change than you might imagine. The question is not whether things will change. They always do. The question is whether we can find God's purpose in the changes. The day of the concert arrived sunny and warm. Sister Maria woke early as always, but instead of practicing, she spent an hour in prayer. Her wrist still ached, but the swelling had gone down slightly. Sister Gabriella helped her dress in a clean habit, not new, but freshly pressed. For the first time in decades, Sister Maria would leave the convent grounds. You look wonderful, Sister Gabriella assured her. A true representative of St. Catherine's, Sister Maria touched her white hair self-consciously. I look like what I am, an old nun who plays the piano. Exactly, Sister Gabriella said with a grin. That's what will make people listen. Professor Bertie arrived at 10 o'clock to drive Sister Maria and Mother Francesca to the community center. As they left the convent, Sister Maria paused at the gate, looking back at the stone buildings that had been her home for so long. It will still be here when you return, Mother Francesca said gently. The community center was larger than Sister Maria had expected, a modern building with glass doors and a spacious lobby already filling with people. Professor Bertie led them through a side entrance to a small room where performers could prepare. The program begins at noon, he explained. You'll play fourth after the children's choir. He hesitated. There's been quite a bit of interest since I mentioned you to a few colleagues. The hall is nearly full. Sister Maria felt her heart skip. How many people? About 300. Sister Maria sat down abruptly, her legs suddenly weak. 300? Mother Francesca put a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to do this. Sister Maria closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and then opened them again. Yes, I do. The next hour passed in a blur. Sister Maria could hear the audience arriving, the murmur of voices growing louder. She flexed her fingers gently, wincing at the twinge in her right wrist. She had taken the pain medication Sister Agnes had given her, but it only dulled the ache rather than eliminating it. From the small preparation room, she could hear the first performers, a string quartet of local music students. They played Vivaldi competently, if not brilliantly. Next came a tenor singing Italian folk songs, followed by the children's choir from a nearby school. Then Professor Bertie was at the door. It's time, Sister Maria. She stood, smoothing her habit with trembling hands. I'm ready. The stage was brightly lit, making it difficult to see the audience clearly. A blessing, Sister Maria thought. The grand piano at the center gleamed under the lights, far larger and more imposing than the modest upright she was used to. Professor Bertie stepped to the microphone. Our next performer comes to us from St. Catherine's Convent here in Verona. Sister Maria Cecilia has been composing music for over 60 years. Though this will be her first public performance, she will play 3 original compositions: The Sparrow's Prayer, Moonlight on Water, and Remembrance. There was polite applause as Sister Maria made her way to the piano. She sat carefully adjusting the bench, then placed her hands in her lap for a moment, saying a silent prayer. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure everyone must hear it. Then she placed her hands on the keys and began to play. The first notes of The Sparrow's Prayer filled the hall, hesitant at first, then growing in confidence. Sister Maria kept her eyes on the keys, afraid to look at the audience. She focused only on the music, on letting the melody speak as clearly as it did in her mind. Her wrist ached, but she played through the pain, losing herself in the familiar patterns. By the time she reached the end of the first piece, she had almost forgotten where she was, almost forgotten the hundreds of strangers listening. There was a moment of silence when she finished. Then applause, stronger than she had expected. Sister Maria dared to glance up briefly, seeing a blur of faces, some leaning forward in their seats. She moved directly into Moonlight on Water, a more contemplative piece inspired by a night when the full moon had reflected perfectly in the convent's small fountain. As she played, an image formed in her mind, not of the audience or the convent, but of her childhood home, of sitting at her father's piano while he listened with proud eyes. The pain in her wrist was sharper now, but Sister Maria barely noticed. The music carried her forward, through the delicate middle section and into the more complex final movement. When the last notes faded, the applause was immediate and enthusiastic. Sister Maria took a deep breath before beginning her final piece. Remembrance was the oldest of her compositions on the program, written shortly after she had taken her vows. It was a piece about letting go and finding peace in a new path. Halfway through, her right hand faltered slightly on a difficult passage. She paused for just a moment, gathering herself, then continued. The mistake was minor, probably noticeable only to her, but it broke the spell of perfect concentration. For the first time, she became fully aware of the audience. Hundreds of strangers were watching her, listening to her most personal expressions. The thought nearly paralyzed her. Then from the corner of her eye, she saw Mother Francesca in the front row, nodding encouragingly. Beside her sat Sister Gabriella and several other nuns who had come to support her. Behind them, Professor Bertie stood at the back of the hall, his expression rapt. Sister Maria took strength from their presence. She wasn't alone on this stage. The music wasn't just hers. It belonged to everyone who heard it, everyone who allowed it to touch them. The final section of Remembrance was a theme and variations, growing increasingly complex before resolving into a simple hymn-like conclusion. Sister Maria played it with renewed confidence, her fingers finding the right keys despite the pain. As the final chord faded, there was a beat of silence. Then the audience erupted in applause, not just polite appreciation but genuine enthusiasm. Several people stood. Sister Maria sat frozen, overwhelmed by the response. Professor Bertie came to the stage and gently guided her to stand and acknowledge the applause. Sister Maria bowed her head slightly, her cheeks flushed with emotion. As she left the stage, she noticed a young man in the front row holding up a small device. A phone? She realized, recording her performance. Several others were doing the same. "They're recording me?" she whispered to Professor Bertie. "Yes," he said. "It's common nowadays. People share videos of performances they enjoy." Sister Maria frowned slightly. "But why would they want to?" "Because what you played moved them," he said simply. "They want others to hear it too." Back in the preparation room, Mother Francesca embraced her warmly. "Sister Maria, that was beautiful. Truly beautiful." "I made a mistake in the third piece," Sister Maria said, flexing her sore wrist. "No one noticed or cared," Mother Francesca assured her. They were captivated. Professor Bertie entered, his face alight with excitement. "Sister Maria, people are asking if you have recordings available. A music critic from the local paper wants to interview you." Sister Maria shook her head, suddenly very tired. No, that's enough for today. I just want to go home." Professor Bertie looked disappointed but nodded understandingly. Of course. But sister, you should know what happened today was special. Your music touched people deeply. As they drove back to the convent, Sister Maria was quiet, processing the events of the day. Playing for others had been terrifying yet exhilarating. For the first time, she had shared the music that had been her private conversation with God for so many years. What she didn't know was that one of those recordings was already being shared online, beginning a journey that would take her music far beyond the walls of St. Catherine's Convent. The day after the concert, life at St. Catherine's Convent returned to its normal rhythm. Sister Maria woke at dawn, attended morning prayers, and then went to the garden where the tomatoes needed staking. Her wrist still ached, but the work was gentle enough, and the warm soil felt good beneath her fingers. "How are you feeling today?" Sister Gabriella asked, joining her with a basket for harvesting lettuce. "Tired," Sister Maria admitted, "but at peace. It's done now." Sister Gabriella smiled. The concert raised enough money for the roof repairs and then some. Mother Francesca is very pleased. "Thanks be to God," Sister Maria said, genuinely relieved. That had been the purpose after all, to help the convent, not to draw attention to herself. 3 days passed quietly. Sister Maria returned to her routine, splitting her time between the garden and the piano, which remained in its original room for now. The computer equipment was still in boxes, but Mother Francesca hadn't mentioned moving the piano back to storage. On the 4th day, Professor Bertie arrived unexpectedly during lunch. His face was flushed with excitement as Mother Francesca brought him to the dining hall. "Sister Maria," he called out, hurrying to her table. "Have you seen it? Do you know what's happening?" Sister Maria looked up from her soup, confused. "Seen what, Professor?" He pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. "Your performance. Someone posted it online, on YouTube and other platforms. It's gone viral, as they say." The nuns at the table exchanged puzzled glances. Sister Gabriella leaned forward. "What does that mean, gone viral?" "It means thousands of people have watched it. Hundreds of thousands, actually." Professor Bertie's voice rose with excitement. "Almost 1 million views in just 3 days. And it's been shared by several major classical music pages and even some celebrities." Sister Maria stared at the small screen, where a video showed her at the piano, head bowed, hands moving over the keys. The image was slightly shaky, clearly filmed by an audience member, but the sound was surprisingly clear. "I don't understand," she said softly. "Why would so many people want to watch an old nun playing the piano?" Professor Bertie sat down beside her. "Because it's beautiful, Sister Maria. Because your music speaks to people. And because your story is compelling. An elderly nun who's been composing masterpieces in secret for decades." Mother Francesca frowned. "We did not agree to have Sister Maria's performance shared with the world. No one asked for permission," Professor Bertie acknowledged. "That's how things work nowadays with smartphones everywhere. But Sister Maria, this is a remarkable opportunity. People are asking about you, about your music. There have been inquiries from record labels, concert halls." "No," Sister Maria interrupted, her voice firm despite her shock. "No record labels. No more concerts. That was not the agreement." Mother Francesca nodded. "Sister Maria performed once for charity. That fulfills our obligation." Professor Bertie looked crestfallen. "But your music deserves to be heard. You've created something precious, something that clearly resonates with people around the world." Sister Maria pushed away from the table, suddenly needing air. "Excuse me," she murmured and hurried from the dining hall. She found herself walking to the chapel, seeking its familiar quiet. The small space was empty at this hour, sunlight streaming through the stained glass windows and casting colored patterns on the stone floor. Sister Maria knelt in her usual spot, but found it difficult to pray. Her mind kept returning to the image on Professor Bertie's phone, herself at the piano witnessed by countless strangers. The thought was both terrifying and strangely thrilling. She had lived most of her life in quiet devotion, her music a private conversation between herself and God. The idea that this most personal expression was now being passed from person to person around the world was overwhelming. "Sister Maria," Mother Francesca's voice came softly from behind her. "May I join you?" Sister Maria nodded, and the younger woman knelt beside her. "Professor Bertie has left," Mother Francesca said after a moment of silence. I told him we would need time to consider what all this means. There's nothing to consider, Sister Maria replied. I'm not leaving the convent to become some sort of performer. No one is suggesting you leave, Mother Francesca said gently. But we cannot simply ignore what's happening. Your music has touched people, sister. Perhaps that is also part of God's plan. Sister Maria turned to look at her, surprised by this change in attitude. I thought you wanted me to focus on practical contributions. The garden, not the piano, Mother Francesca sighed. I was wrong. I was so focused on modernizing, on ensuring the convent's future, that I failed to recognize the value of what was already here. She paused. Your gift is not just for yourself or even just for us. That much is clear now. Over the next few days, the situation only intensified. Local newspapers ran stories about the piano nun, as they called her. People began appearing at the convent gates hoping to hear Sister Maria play, or simply to catch a glimpse of her. A week after the concert, Professor Bertie returned with a more formal proposal. Mother Francesca invited Sister Maria to her office to hear it. The London Philharmonic is performing in Milan next month, he explained. They've expressed interest in having Sister Maria as a special guest performer for one piece. Her own composition, of course. Sister Maria's eyes widened. The London Philharmonic? But they're world famous. I'm just a composer whose work has now been heard by millions. Professor Bertie finished for her. They were deeply impressed by your music, sister. The complexity, the emotion, the unique voice you've developed. It's in Milan, Mother Francesca noted. Not too far. We could arrange transportation, proper accommodations. Sister Maria looked between them, bewildered by how quickly her world was changing. You think I should do this? Mother Francesca folded her hands on her desk. I think we should pray for guidance. But sister, if your music can bring beauty and peace to others in these troubled times, is that not a form of ministry? That night, Sister Maria could not sleep. She sat by her window, looking out at the convent garden silvered by moonlight. All her life, she had followed a path of obedience and routine. Now at 83, that path was taking an unexpected turn. Could she face another performance, this time in a grand concert hall with professional musicians? The thought made her heart race with anxiety. Yet beneath the fear was a small, growing spark of something else. Excitement, perhaps. Or purpose. The next morning, after much prayer and reflection, Sister Maria gave her answer. She would perform with the London Philharmonic, but with conditions. She would wear her habit, not concert attire. She would play only one piece, not an entire program. And a portion of the ticket sales would go to children's music education, as the charity concert had. Professor Bertie was delighted, despite the limitations. They'll agree to everything, I'm certain. This will be a historic performance, sister. Preparations began immediately. Professor Bertie arranged for a proper grand piano to be delivered to the convent for Sister Maria to practice on. He also brought in a piano technician to ensure it was perfectly tuned. Which piece will you perform? He asked. Sister Maria considered carefully. I have something new, something I began after the concert. She placed her hands on the keys and played a haunting melody, more complex than anything Professor Bertie had heard from her before. I'm calling it Beyond Walls. It's perfect, he said when she finished. Absolutely perfect. News of the upcoming performance spread quickly. A British documentary filmmaker contacted the convent, requesting permission to follow Sister Maria's journey. After much discussion, Mother Francesca agreed, with strict limitations on filming within the convent itself. People want to understand where this music comes from, the filmmaker explained during her first visit. Your story is as compelling as your composition, Sister Maria. Sister Maria found the constant attention exhausting but bore it with patience. God has a sense of humor, she told Sister Gabriella one evening. All my life I prayed for humility. Now he sends me fame. The days passed quickly, filled with practice and preparations. Sister Maria's wrist continued to trouble her, but she worked with a physical therapist who taught her exercises to strengthen her hands and reduce pain. Finally, the day of the Milan performance arrived. Sister Maria traveled by car with Mother Francesca and Professor Bertie, watching silently as the familiar countryside gave way to the busy streets of the city. It had been decades since she had been in such a large urban center, and the noise and movement were almost overwhelming. The concert hall was enormous, far larger than the community center, where she had first performed. During the afternoon rehearsal, Sister Maria met the conductor and several members of the orchestra, all of whom treated her with a mixture of curiosity and respect. "Your composition is extraordinary," the conductor told her. "The orchestra is honored to accompany you." Sister Maria had never imagined her music being played by dozens of professional musicians. Hearing the full orchestral arrangement of Beyond Walls during rehearsal brought tears to her eyes. "It's as if they're speaking for me," she whispered to Professor Birdie, "saying things I felt but couldn't express alone." That evening, the concert hall filled with over 2,000 people. The documentary crew filmed discreetly from various angles. Sister Maria waited in a small room backstage, trying to calm her racing heart through prayer. Mother Francesca sat with her, a steady, supportive presence. "Remember why you're doing this," she said gently. "Not for applause, but as an offering." When it was time, Sister Maria made her way to the stage, guided by a young stagehand. The bright lights momentarily blinded her as she emerged. The audience, which had been applauding politely, suddenly erupted in enthusiastic cheers when they saw the small, elderly nun in her traditional habit. Sister Maria made her way to the grand piano at center stage, nodded respectfully to the conductor, and took her seat. As she had at her first performance, she placed her hands in her lap for a moment of silent prayer before beginning. Then she played. Beyond Walls began softly, with a simple theme that Sister Maria had first heard in her dreams. As she played, the orchestra joined gradually, adding layers of harmony and counterpoint. The piece built slowly, growing in complexity and emotion, until it reached a triumphant middle section where Sister Maria's piano and the full orchestra seemed to converse with each other. Sister Maria played with her eyes closed, lost in the music, barely aware of the thousands of people listening. Her wrist ached, but the pain seemed distant and unimportant compared to the joy of bringing this music to life. The final section of the piece returned to the original theme, now transformed by all that had come before. As Sister Maria played the last delicate notes, the hall fell completely silent. A moment of collective held breath before erupting into thunderous applause. The audience rose to their feet, applauding and cheering. Sister Maria stood shakily and bowed her head, overwhelmed by the response. The conductor came to her side, taking her hand and raising it gently, encouraging her to acknowledge the acclaim. Backstage afterward, people lined up to speak with her. Musicians, critics, audience members moved to tears by her performance. Sister Maria received their compliments with humble grace, though she found the attention exhausting. "Your music transcends categories," one critic told her. "It's not just classical or sacred. It speaks a universal language." Late that night, back in her hotel room, Sister Maria sat by the window looking out at the lights of Milan. Tomorrow she would return to the quiet of St. Catherine's, to her simple room and daily routines. But something had changed, not just in how the world saw her, but in how she understood her own life's work. For decades, she had believed her music was a private devotion. Now she realized it could also be a gift to others, a way of sharing beauty in a world that desperately needed it. As she finally drifted toward sleep, Sister Maria thought of all the notebooks filled with compositions in her old suitcase under the bed. Perhaps it was time to open that suitcase wider, to let more light in, and more light out. In the months following the Milan performance, Sister Maria's life took on a rhythm she could never have imagined. Her days were still structured around prayer and convent duties, but now they included interviews, recording sessions, and occasional performances. The documentary about her life and music, titled Hidden Harmonies, was released to critical acclaim. It showed Sister Maria's journey from the small storage room at St. Catherine's to the grand concert halls of Europe, interspersed with the quiet moments of convent life that continued to ground her. "How does it feel to become famous at 83? A journalist asked during an interview in the convent garden. Sister Maria smiled as she pinched dead leaves from a tomato plant. "Fame is a strange visitor. I try not to get too attached to it. Tomorrow it may visit someone else." What did touch her deeply, however, were the letters. Hundreds of them arrived at the convent each week, from elderly people inspired to pursue forgotten passions, from young musicians discovering classical composition through her work, from people of all faiths who found something universal in her music. "Your playing reminded me of my grandmother," wrote one young woman. "She played piano until her arthritis became too painful. Hearing you made me feel she was with me again. I haven't been to church in 20 years, another letter read, but your music made me remember what it felt like to believe in something larger than myself. Sister Maria read every letter, though she couldn't possibly respond to them all. The stories people shared with her of grief and hope, of lost dreams and new beginnings became part of her daily prayers. A year after her first public performance, a music publisher approached her about releasing a collection of her compositions. With Mother Francesca's blessing, Sister Maria agreed, on the condition that part of the proceeds would establish a foundation for music education in underserved communities. The Maria Cecilia Foundation for Musical Excellence, Professor Bertie suggested when they were discussing the details. Sister Maria shook her head firmly. No, not my name. Call it the Sparrow's Song Foundation. After all, I just caught the melodies that were already in the air. The collection, titled A Lifetime of Prayer and Music, the compositions of Sister Maria Cecilia, became the fastest-selling classical music publication in a decade. Professional pianists around the world began including her works in their concert programs, each bringing their own interpretation to pieces that had once existed only in Sister Maria's notebooks and mind. As her 84th birthday approached, Sister Maria began to feel the weight of her age more keenly. The arthritis in her hands progressed, making it increasingly difficult to play for extended periods. Yet rather than frustrating her, this limitation brought a sense of peaceful acceptance. God gives and God takes away, she told Mother Francesca during one of their evening talks. The music was his gift to me for a time. Now perhaps it's time for me to listen more and play less. But if Sister Maria was playing less, she was teaching more. What began as casual advice to a few local music students who visited the convent grew into regular master classes. Mother Francesca, seeing the value of this new ministry, converted part of the convent's ground floor into a proper music room with 2 pianos. I thought you wanted computers, not more pianos, Sister Maria teased when the second instrument arrived. Mother Francesca laughed. We have both now. The digital center is thriving too. St. Catherine's is finding a balance between tradition and innovation, thanks in part to you. The relationship between the two women had evolved from the initial tension into deep mutual respect. Mother Francesca's practical leadership had indeed strengthened the convent's financial position, while Sister Maria's unexpected fame had brought new life and purpose to the community. On a warm spring day 2 years after her first performance, Sister Maria received a special visitor. The director of the Milan Conservatory of Music came to discuss a proposal, the establishment of a scholarship in her name for promising young composers. We would be honored if you would serve as honorary chairperson, he said, as they walked slowly through the convent garden. Your story has inspired so many of our students. Sister Maria considered the offer carefully. I cannot travel much these days, she said, gesturing to the cane she now used. But I would be happy to meet with the scholarship recipients here at St. Catherine's. The director beamed. That would be perfect. And perhaps some of our faculty could come occasionally to work with your students here. That was how the St. Catherine's music program formally began, a collaboration between the ancient convent and the prestigious conservatory. Young musicians from around Italy applied for the opportunity to study in the unique environment, learning not only technique and theory but also the spiritual dimension of music that Sister Maria embodied. Music isn't just about the right notes, she would tell her students. It's about listening, to the silence between notes, to the world around you, to the voice within you. Her teaching style was gentle, but precise. Despite her increasing physical limitations, her ear remained perfect, and she could detect the slightest hesitation or misinterpretation in a student's playing. There, she would say, stopping a student mid-phrase. Listen to what the music is asking for there. It wants to breathe. By her 85th birthday, Sister Maria rarely performed in public anymore, though she still played daily for herself and for the convent community. Her compositions, however, continued to spread throughout the world. Orchestras commissioned arrangements of her piano works. A ballet company in Paris created a production based on Moonlight on Water. A renowned cellist recorded an album of adaptations titled Conversations with Sister Maria. The income from these projects, directed to the Sparrow Song Foundation, funded music programs in schools across Italy and beyond. Children who might never have touched a musical instrument were discovering the joy of creating sound and harmony. "You've created quite a legacy," Professor Bertie told her during one of his regular visits. "Far beyond what either of us imagined that day I heard you playing in the storage room." Sister Maria shook her head modestly. "I just played what I heard in my heart. Everything else was God's doing." As she entered her 86th year, Sister Maria's health began to decline more noticeably. Her walks in the garden became shorter, her teaching sessions less frequent. Yet her mind remained sharp and she continued to compose, dictating melodies to her most dedicated student, a young woman named Sophia who had a remarkable ability to capture Sister Maria's musical intentions. "Your hands will play what mine know." "Longer can," Sister Maria told Sophia. "That's how music survives. It passes from one heart to another." Winter came, bringing unusual cold to Verona. Sister Maria developed a cough that lingered despite treatment. By early February, she was confined to her bed, with the sisters taking turns sitting with her. "Bring my notebooks," she asked Sister Gabriella one afternoon, the old ones from the bottom of the suitcase. Sister Gabriella retrieved the weathered notebooks, some dating back to Sister Maria's earliest days at the convent. Together they turned the pages, Sister Maria pausing occasionally to hum a phrase or comment on a particular composition. "This one," she said, pointing to a simple piece titled First Light. "This was the beginning. I wrote it the week after I took my vows. I was so afraid then, wondering if I had made the right choice." She smiled at the memory. "The music helped me find my way." Mother Francesca arranged for a small piano to be moved into Sister Maria's room, so that visiting students could play for her when she was too weak to go to the music room. The young musicians came faithfully, bringing their latest work for her gentle critique or simply playing her compositions to comfort her. On a quiet Sunday morning in early March, 3 years after her first public performance, Sister Maria asked to be helped to the chapel for Mass. Though the doctors advised against it, Mother Francesca understood the importance of this request and arranged for 2 strong-armed gardeners to carry her in a chair. The small chapel was filled with sisters, students, and a few close friends like Professor Bertie. Sister Maria sat near the front, wrapped in blankets despite the spring warmth, her face pale but her eyes bright. After communion, there was a surprise. Sophia walked to the chapel's small organ and began to play, a piece no one had heard before. The melody was distinctively Sister Maria's, but with something new, something that spoke of completion and peaceful acceptance. Sister Maria listened with closed eyes, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. When the last notes faded, she whispered to Mother Francesca beside her, "It's finished now." "The final piece, what is it called?" Mother Francesca asked, taking her frail hand. "Coming Home," Sister Maria replied. "Sophia and I have been working on it these past weeks." The following morning, Sister Maria did not wake for prayers. She had slipped away peacefully in her sleep, her worn hands still curved as if resting on piano keys. News of her passing spread quickly beyond the convent walls. Messages of condolence arrived from musicians, students, and listeners around the world whose lives had been touched by her music. The small chapel could not possibly hold all who wished to attend her funeral, so the service was moved to Verona's cathedral. During the funeral mass, there were no eulogies. Sister Maria had requested simplicity. Instead, there was music, her music, played by those she had taught and inspired. The cathedral filled with the sounds of the Sparrow's Prayer, Moonlight on Water, Beyond Walls, and finally, Coming Home. As the last notes echoed through the ancient stone building, Mother Francesca rose to make one announcement. In accordance with Sister Maria's wishes, St. Catherine's Convent will establish a permanent music school in her name. The Sister Maria Cecilia School of Sacred Music will welcome students of all backgrounds and faiths who seek to explore the spiritual dimensions of musical expression. In the years that followed, the school flourished. The convent grounds expanded to include new practice rooms and a small concert hall, while maintaining spaces for silence and contemplation. Young musicians came from around the world to study there, drawn by the unique philosophy that Sister Maria had embodied, that music at its most profound is a form of prayer, a conversation with something larger than oneself. On the 5th anniversary of her passing, a simple stone bench was placed in the convent garden, beneath the window where Sister Maria had spent so many hours in reflection. The bench bore a single inscription: "I played for God, not for applause." Yet the applause continued. Her music remained alive in concert halls and recordings, in the fingers of students discovering her compositions for the first time.